All right, welcome friends back to another episode of The Yard. I am your host, Darryl Scotti, and I'm coming to you from Big Yard Nation here in Cave Creek, Arizona. And we're here today, and I'm totally beyond myself to be with guitar player and collaborator, songwriter, performer, a living legend, if you will, in Arizona blues. And that man would be Chuck Hall. He's sitting right next to me. Chuck, man.
Darryl, good to see you, buddy.
Dude, man, it's been such a blessing to get to meet you and get to know you, and we'll talk a little bit about how that all happened and you know, and then what transpired, you know, shortly after that. So again, you know, you've been a huge part of the collaboration that we've done here on our newest project. 54th Street Sessions is what we're calling it, Chuck.
Cool.
And you've got a song on that called Melody that we co-wrote. And I got to tell you, man, first of all, I met you through Ed Hauser, who owns Black Mountain Guitar Company here in town. And I was in there when I first came here, and I had no idea that any of this was going to happen. But, you know, as a musician, when I came to Arizona, again, no clue. But I met Alex Chacon and a few other people. Ed was one of them. Sarah James was another one. And shortly after that, I heard of you. And I'm sorry to say that I didn't know much of your work and your discography and the travels that you had around the world and your band, The Brick Hall, and this legend that you had become. But I heard about you. And so I got your phone number and I called and I talked to your wife. And you and I set up some sessions up in my studio, and we were just playing guitar, you know.
Well, I remember you had requested lessons, that what I thought. So I went in there with my teacher cap on.
I just wanted to get better.
Yeah. Then it morphed into, hey, I got this idea for a song. And we just started kind of putting stuff together, you know, and you just kind of follow where the music goes. That's what we ended up doing. Yeah.
And we're going to talk about collaboration a little bit. That's a big thing with us right now. And so Melody, let's talk a little bit about Melody before we get started and talk a little bit more about how you've collaborated with other artists around the world. But Melody in particular, that's on the record, 54th Street Sessions. And I had an idea to write a love song, a songwriter writing a love song to a song.
Right.
And I came up with some lyrics and I sat down with you and I said, man, I want this thing to, you know, R&B, and I want it to rock, you know.
Yeah.
And so you and I sat down. I had an idea with a tempo, and you came up with these almost like that, this chord progression. And one of the lyrics on it was, woke up this morning, wrote down some words, put them between 8 bars of rhythm and blues, you know? And you took that and you wrote what is now called Melody.
Yeah, I don't remember that I contributed a whole lot to the lyrics, but I just remember you had set down a tempo and I just went with that. It kind of happened in the moment, so I didn't retain a lot of it. I'd actually have to hear it again to know what we're talking about exactly.
Well, I'll tell you, I'd be happy to sing it for you right now, but I won't. But I'll tell you, you and our viewers and listeners, you get a chance to listen to Melody on the 54th Street Sessions. You will hear a slide guitar solo that I'm going to talk to you a little bit. It's a great story. A slide guitar solo that was done by Chuck Hall that's world class, second to none. Now, I know you're friends with Billy Gibbons.
Actually,
acquaintance.
Dusty Hill I spent a lot of time with
Dusty,
the bass player.
Who's now passed away.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And so, you know, I know that Billy's, aware of you and your playing, and you, of course, are an admirer of Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top. And you played a slide solo on this that's unbelievable. And you know, we cut that as almost a scratch when we were doing scratch tracks.
Yeah.
And it was really before Alex Chacon was brought on to produce the sessions for us. And you had cut that, and I hooked you up. You went in direct line to it. I think you even picked up one of my guitars in the studio and played a slide, and it was like, whoa. And then when we went to do the basic tracks, after Alex came in put the drum tracks together for us and whatnot, we said, let's bring you back in and let's do that slide part. So you brought your amp in and you sat down and we mic'd it up and you played it and it was good. And we listened back at the scratch and you said, you know something, man?
Yeah.
There was some magic there.
There was. And it was all right there in the moment, and that's so hard to recapture sometimes.
It is.
Yeah. That's probably the hardest part about playing music is you have those moments where stuff just, you don't know where it comes from, you can't explain it, and you'd actually have to sit down and relearn it, how to do what you do, me, and then rehearse it a while and get it back to where it sounds like it just happened.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah, that's a hard thing to do, man.
It is. You know,
so we went with the first one.
we went.
I can tend towards lazy, you know.
Well, I'll tell you, man, it was impromptu. It was magical. There were a lot of moments like that in these sessions, but that was certainly one of them. Let's talk about musicianship and some collaboration. Musicianship, that's a big thing with us. Tell me a little bit about how you got started. What inspired you, Chuck, to become the performer that you are? You've been involved with music all your life. You're an instructor and a teacher. You're a performer. You still got you go out and play. You're not with, Brick Wall is not around anymore.
No, for 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess it was such a strong image that I still hear about it all the time.
I bet you do.
It cracks me up pretty good.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what inspired you. I know that you're from Louisiana, right?
Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge. Mm-hmm. So how did it get started? We talked a little bit about that as we got to know each other over this last year or so. Tell our audience a little bit about what inspired you and how this whole thing came about.
Well, my mom's a classical pianist, and my first musical memories are hearing her play like Beethoven, Bach, and Mozart.
Wow.
Beautifully. That was the music in my head, and I'm sure I heard it before I was born. She probably sat at the piano and practiced while I'm in there, right? And then living down in Baton Rouge, my dad would bring home Dixieland records. He loved Henry Mancini, which, wow, great stuff. So that's pretty much the first music I remember hearing. And my brother, a little bit younger than me, he and I would just be bouncing around the house listening to this stuff, right? And then I discovered on AM radio, regional AM radio back then would play everything. So you'd hear Frank Sinatra and then you'd hear John Lee Hooker.
Wow.
Although I didn't know who any of them were.
And
I just heard music and I'm like, wow.
And music is
really
rich
cool.
in your area.
Extremely rich. I think I took one piano lesson. My mom and I still have a discussion about this when I was 5. And
Mom.
Yeah, and I immediately knew that I could count. I had time and I could hear the notes. And then I wanted to go back out and play in the woods. But when I first heard an electric guitar on this weird record my dad brought home, guitars weren't like they are now. You know, they're everywhere.
Right.
And I heard that sound and I go, what is that? And he told me, and it was probably about another 4 years before I got a guitar.
Wow.
Yeah, you couldn't go to Walmart and buy a Fender Squire pack. And that wasn't a plug, by the way. As soon as I got the guitar, I remember going like this, bling. I go, wow, that sounds like something. Turns out it was an E minor chord.
Was it tuned open? And it was,
No.
You just played that.
I just
E
picked
shape.
it up. I didn't know how to tune it. The guy at the store tuned it, handed it to me.
And you just played an E minor.
And I just went, And I could hear it was something. And then I later discovered that was an E minor. The performance thing, I'm not sure how that came about. But I remember being in a band when I was about 12. And, the Beatles were absolutely smoking at that time.
They changed my life.
Oh, yeah. So I think part of the performance thing was we were all trying to act like the Beatles.
Absolutely.
And jumping around. And you got that much energy. And
now, you had the hair. I didn't. So.
Well, it was short back then. And it's short again. Yeah, and then it just went on from that. And I started to... I hear music in my head like 24/7 and I always have. So I just started to kind of follow that. And it's sort of a conglomeration of everything I've ever heard. It's interesting. I do a solo show now that I developed starting about 10 years ago. It literally is everything, a combination of everything I've ever heard in my life. And it just kind of comes out of the guitar, and then I have to go to work and figure out what it is. But that actually helped me focus so that when I do a band, man, it is solid old school blues.
Wow.
Yeah, and before that, I was a little confused about things, but that's helped me clear it all up.
Well, I've talked to some players that have played with you over the years, and they all love working with you.
Oh,
And, just your
well,
professionalism, your attitude, and of course your generosity with the audience and sharing your music. When did you pick up the slide guitar and start playing the slide? Because that's one of the things that I think you do that a lot of people try to play slide, but few have really been able to master, the articulation of the blue notes and the melody like you have.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I played trombone in junior high in the band.
That helps.
And I was probably about 30, and somebody goes, "Have you ever tried to play slide?" And I went, "No." And then I started messing around with it. I go, "Oh, this is trombone." So maybe I had a head start.
It's funny, I know trombone in terms of musicians and music theory is a great instrument, but I never heard anybody talk about that with the slide, and you're right.
Well, yeah, on a trombone, a trumpet has definite positions, valves that you push the keys and you get exactly the note you're looking for.
But
Trombone, you got to hear it, and you're sliding. Kind of simple. And when I started sliding around, I went, "Oh yeah, this is trombone."
I never thought. It makes total sense.
Well, yeah, and then you just take it out. You get excited and play stuff.
Well, let's go and talk a little bit about musicianship. For you, how did that professionalism that you bring to the table, from learning, teaching, performance, how did that all happen? Take our audience through that.
Well, my mom was obviously, as a piano teacher for 60 years, very professional. And she studied that in college. That was her master's, along with composition. And so her approach to things, I saw it all the time. And maybe I just kind of picked some of that up, and take it further. Plus, you prefer to deal with people that are professional.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like do unto others.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Plus, it's just simpler. I can't imagine doing it in a different way. I don't know that I can handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. What do you think is important for musicians and musicianship, from learning the instrument to becoming a professional? What do you think our audience, I'm sure, would be interested in knowing a little bit about that?
First off, a grasp of time and intervals, hearing the notes, because without that, music's kind of cacophonous. Mm-hmm. Hours of practice. Practice. Yeah, and a great amount of desire. I personally think music is like the greatest way to manipulate the energy that drives the universe. In doing so, I know the effect it's had on me throughout my life. The excitement and joy that it brings me, and the emotional experience that you can have with it. So if you're able to train yourself to pass that along to people, I think that's just a really positive way to go about things.
I read that Bono from U2 said music can change the world.
It does.
One soul at a time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I really think that that's true. And we're starting to see more inspirational music, more songs with messages of hope. Of course, love songs, and in country, you got to have a song about a truck, and a song about drinking or stopping drinking and quitting drinking. But there's a lot of songs that really bring a positive message that do touch upon what the doctrine of ethos, the effect of music on the soul. Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, I totally agree. Like I say, I know that the effect it's had on me my entire life. I'm glad I'm able, or I hope that I'm able to pass that along to people, that kind of excitement.
Well, you've had a long career and in music, as a performer and touring. What can you say to our young audience that are looking to become a professional musician and aspiring to become a performance artist and maybe looking at touring either as an artist or as part of a band, what does it take to be able to do that?
It takes a little rat in your belly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without that, it's kind of hard to do anything. One of my kids was in class. What was the deal? Oh, and he asked me a question that the teacher had asked him, and I said, "Well, you have to be able to fail and then get through it, because if you're doing things right 50% of the time, you're probably in pretty good shape." And then I heard something else, that it takes about 10,000 hours to approach mastery of something. You never really approach it.
It's true.
Perfection doesn't exist except in the striving to get there, right?
The journey.
Yeah. So you got your little rat. You got to be able to fail and handle it and move on. Then you got to spend 10,000 plus hours working on your craft.
Well,
then you have to buy a crappy old van and spend most of your time underneath it so you can get to the next gig.
Oh, man. Don't let that deter you, young musicians.
Kids, don't try that at home.
Great stuff, man. So what's inspired you to write a song? I know that we talked about our collaboration, but you've written a lot of songs.
I got to be honest, most of the time I think it's in the guitar. I pick the guitar up. Every time I get a different guitar, I pick it up and something jumps out of it. And I don't know how that works, but then I have to go to work and try to figure out what it is and finish it.
Isn't that funny how you can pick up a different instrument? Or,
absolutely.
Whether a mandolin maybe, or just another guitar with a different personality.
Absolutely.
And yeah, man.
Well, my solo thing, for instance, I pick the guitar up. I might even just play a weird chord and go, ooh, wait a minute, I hear something there.
Wow.
And then start finishing it. And sometimes it'll wake me up at 3 a.m. because I'll hear somebody jamming in my head, in a dream, and I have to get up and go, oh God, got to get out of bed, got to work this lick out, record it, try to go back to sleep, and so you never know. But in my solo thing, because I finally just said, that's it, I'm just going to really commit to this. I was always kind of shunting it off to the side. I've got 76, I think it is, pieces of music now, about 4 hours worth. Solo instrumental, nylon string guitar, and about 80% original. So for 4 or 5 years, well, actually still, but not, there was about a 4 or 5 year period of intense, just deep in it. I didn't do much else.
Sat on the couch.
Pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, COVID was a silver lining for a lot of us. I know it was for me. I never would have come to Arizona and met all you guys, and the Big Yard Nation would never have gotten resurrected. My last record was in 2005, but COVID was a silver lining for you too, because you really did a reinvention.
Well, yeah, 2 things happened. Number one, I didn't have to hold myself in a certain spot like I've been doing every night for 40-something years.
Right.
Because performance time, right? You gotta be ready. You gotta be there. So all of a sudden, I'm on the couch going, I'm on vacation. Now, I got too deep into that, but I also came up with, I don't know how many tunes, and wrote a whole electric instrumental album in that period. Yeah, partly boredom. That's when your brain starts to open up and things happen.
Get
for
creative.
me anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes something like that
Yeah.
to shake. I know songwriters, nothing like a broken heart, for a songwriter.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the process, and thank you for sharing that. But I mentioned earlier in the interview that your career has taken you around the world, your discography, all of your recordings from back in Brick Wall, and your audience in Europe and whatnot. But where do you think you found the most success?
From my perspective, I love my solo thing probably more than anything.
Really?
Yeah. From an audience perspective, because I get a lot of feedback, they love they still like Chuck Hall and the Brick Wall. I hear about that a lot. In fact, my record label just remixed a record that we put out in '87, and it sounds fabulous. You can find it on the different, whatever those are. Where you
got remixed. got remastered?
Remastered, remixed, remastered.
Wow.
Yeah, sounds great. So I'd say from a lot of the audience perspective, it depends on who you ask, but
What's the name of that record? Let our audience know.
Chuck Hall and the Brick Wall.
Right on.
Yeah, you can find it on, I don't know how that stuff works, where you buy music online.
You want to hear some great blues and some great slide guitar and some great writing? Chuck Hall and the Brick Wall.
But as far as my own personal thing, I love sitting down with my nylon string guitar.
Yeah.
It's so expressive. And it makes you, well, let me rephrase that. It allows you to, or it kind of makes you find the expression. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like a blank slate.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Telecaster.
Well, I've seen your solo show.
Yeah.
I've seen, I don't know if all full 4 hours of it.
No.
I've seen a lot of it. And you like taking some classical songs that with a catchy melody on it and playing around it and then putting that melody and that phrase in the song. So all of a sudden you might be 32 measures, 64 measures into the song, and then all of a sudden that comes out and it's like, whoa, man, where did that come from? So how did that evolve?
I got to think, partly hearing my mom play music by the masters.
Wow.
You know, it doesn't get any, it just doesn't get any better than what those people wrote. And I know I grew up hearing a lot of it, so it's got to be in there somewhere.
So it was just natural for you to take that and put it to the fretboard.
More accidental. I wouldn't claim that I actually know what I'm doing. I just kind of follow my ears.
Wow, man. Thank you so much. And is there anything else you'd like to share with the young listening audience or those that are aspiring or fans of yours?
Whatever you do it with a serious amount of fervor. And do your best to stay positive with what you do, because you can spread a lot of positive energy around the world if you do.
A lot of love.
Yeah.
Chuck Hall.
Awesome, Darryl. Thanks,
Thank you,
buddy.
man.
Thank you.
Blessing. And I loved our collaboration, and can't wait for you to hear the final.
Yes,
on it.
I would love to.
Your friend Jerry Donato, who has done an episode with us that came in as a horn section that you recommended.
Yeah.
And you'll hear his work, and he's just such a big fan of yours.
Well, and it's mutual. The feeling. Jerry's great.
I know you guys go back, and
yeah,
that's a great episode, by the way. Go back and look at the Jerry Donato episode. Good friends of Chuck Hall. It's hard to put it into words how much love I've got for you.
Oh, thank you, brother.
And the tremendous collaboration and what you've done on this latest record. So thank you so much.
Well, cool.
Well, that's all the time that we have today, and thank you again for joining us in the Yard. Where we've had the pleasure of chatting with guitar player and song collaborator Chuck Hall, a living legend here in the state of Arizona. From all of us at Big Yard Nation, we hope when you're out there getting to wherever it is that you're getting to, that all your dreams come true. Visit us at bigyardnation.com. Join us in the yard. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Big Yard Nation. And don't forget to like and subscribe to us right here on YouTube. That's really important. We'd love that. Click on that little subscribe button. Stay in touch with us. Go to Big Yard Nation. Join the nation. And until next time, this is Darryl Scotti. May God bless you and keep you safe. Until next time, peace out from the nation.